Welcome into the College Football Overtime Podcast. My name is Garrett Chapman. His name is Abe Gordon, and we are taking care of those off-season blues, trying to talk a little bit of college football here. I think it's like 12 more Saturdays until we actually have college football back. It's 12 too many. Hopefully it'll get here soon enough, but it'll be here before we know it. So we're going to be taking care of you all off-season long. So before we get going, make sure you drop a like, follow, give us 5 stars. Maybe drop a comment. Tell us what you want us to talk about next week, and we will dive right into it. But for today, we're going to be talking about some of the kickoff times that were officially announced, including some interesting ones that Abe Gordon has some thoughts about. The NCAA trailer for the new college football game just got released, and I'm over the moon about it, and I'll ask Abe about that one as well. Plus, we'll finish off with the most interesting offenses entering the 2024 season. Maybe not the best ones, but certainly the most interesting ones. But before we do all of that, gotta welcome in Abe Gordon. How you doing, buddy?
What's up, brother, man? I'm doing pretty well. Yeah, it's again just as we pedal towards fall camps, man. There's always something going on, always something that turns into an event. And this week it was the release of kickoff times that made something out of nothing. So here we go.
Yeah, it's the biggest thing. And Abe, let's just go ahead and start there because we have our first look at a lot of these big kickoffs that are becoming week one. The first one, of course, week 0 with Georgia Tech and Florida State taking place over in Dublin, Ireland. That one's going to be happening at noon, Saturday, August 24th. But then week 1 hits, and that one's going to be a lot of fun. That one, of course, headlined by the likes of Georgia and Clemson. And like that's the biggest one there. I mean, Texas A&M is taking a trip. Let me see where that one is. Miami and Florida are playing. That's going to be a fantastic matchup. I mean, like Texas A&M and Notre Dame, that's going to be a fantastic matchup. But one in particular that you're going to be looking at for week 1 and for week 2, it's the fact that all of these games are going to be happening at noon. Alabama, Wisconsin, Texas, and Michigan, Georgia, and Clemson. It's like an epidemic. I don't know what we're doing there because prime time is the best time to be playing. It's the best slate. It's like the big noon kickoff. I understand you played Ohio State and Michigan at that time. That's just the traditional time that you play them. But Texas and Michigan needs to be played at 8 o'clock. I don't know what we're doing here. Georgia and Clemson, that needs to be kicking off after when the sun's going down, Abe. You need a day of tailgating and everything else that goes into it. What say you, man?
Yeah, I totally disagree, to be honest. Like, I'm tired of having to watch NC State at noon or watch South Carolina at noon. Like you have 3 primetime windows, or not primetime, but 3 premier windows. Let's get 3 or 4 premier games. I don't need the 3 best games all kicking off within 15 minutes of each other. I think this is a quite frankly an intelligent maneuver. And most of this is being done by ESPN/ABC in regards to their opening window now that they do have the SEC with a lot more rights for them. Yeah, take advantage of it. Like, why would you want to go up against the other conference's best games when you can isolate and have a quality game later in those windows? The thing for me is you're trying to, and this is from a business perspective. I understand the fan perspective. I'm speaking solely from this is why this is happening, not what do we prefer. So I want to be clear on that. But from a business perspective, noon until 3:30 is not a wasted window for these broadcasters. And to be able to throw, you know, the games that they want in that window. I also do wonder, and this goes back to business, the potential of the pregame show and having a strong, you know, a reason to put on big noon kickoff versus college game day. And you wonder if there's a little bit of that as well, as college game day has suffered a little bit. Big noon kickoff has been getting a lot of pats on the backs and compliments. You wonder if that plays its own role as well. But yeah, like I'm just tired of not having games that are worth watching until 3:30, only to have like 5 different games I need to focus on. So I'm in favor of this. I understand from a business perspective why this is happening. I will say this, and I agree with what you're about to say. Some of these games just at night, under the lights, with the atmosphere rocking, I totally get it. Hopefully you don't lose too much of that.
I don't think that you will, just because, I mean, the one that you have at noon is just that's the biggest head scratcher of them all. But I guess that's the one that's happening at the neutral site. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. Texas A&M and Notre Dame, I believe, is going to be happening. Yeah. I'm looking at it right now. So that one's going to be happening at Kyle Field. But the Georgia and Clemson game, maybe that had something to do with it. The fact that it's going to be taking place at Mercedes-Benz Stadium, maybe. But Florida and Miami, that's at Ben Hill Griffith down over at the Swamp. So the other ones are on campus, and maybe that had something to do with it. But I just know, I mean, it was pretty consistently thought of as a noon. It was a little disappointing for lots of Georgia and Clemson folks, just because I think that is the marquee matchup of the three of them for week one in particular, for that one. But I understand having each one at your own segment and building up and doing it that way. But then, but when we go into week two, it's like I do like the idea of having the build up and the anticipation and everyone's trying to think about the same game, and then everyone's eyes go to the same game. It's not quite in the same vein as what you have in the NFL, where you only have the one national game that's taking place, and that's Sunday Night Football on NBC, and everybody's watching. It's not exactly the same context to that, just because there's so many more games and a lot more teams are playing, but games feel bigger when they happen at night. That's just my opinion on the matter. I think the perfect kickoff time, in my opinion, is 3:30, 4 o'clock. But occasionally, if you move into the 5 o'clock hour, I think that's just peak college football. But I understand your premise. I love the idea of having marquee matchups throughout the day, so you can pace it and you can have something that you're watching, and you don't have to, unless you're like one of the sickos like you or me who have like 2, 3, 4 screens up. Most people only have the one, and then they have to choose. And in this case, to your point, it's kind of nice to be able to choose the biggest game and have the biggest game in each one of your slots. So I understand where you're coming from, but it is kind of a teaser, just getting us college football fans excited about the regular season coming back. It'll be here very, very soon. But one other big thing that happened this week was the release of the new college football game trailer. I'm not going to play it here because it's 2.5 minutes long, and I don't want to sit here and watch it for that case for this purpose. But so if you haven't watched the video, pause this, go check it out, because it got me hyped up. I'm ready to roll. I'm thinking very hard about going and buying a PlayStation 5 or something like that, and then just so I can play. This was a massive part of my childhood, something that I loved very, very much. The idea of playing it, having an online dynasty with my buddies, the road to glory and everything else. It is so much fun, and I love it.
Trailer does nothing for me, man. Couldn't care less. I really don't get it. Like, it's the same thing as like when they announce a movie that I know I'm going to see. Like, yeah, I'm going to see it. Like, I don't care what's in the trailer. I'm already in. Like, that's my whole thing. I'm already in.
Yeah.
And so I do understand the excitement about the trailer, but like, people were already in. Like, everyone I talked to, even before the trailer came out, was like, "Oh my God, did you see the cover? I can't wait to get it. I'm going to get this version." I'm like, cool. Like, this whole, you were in. Like, the trailer doesn't add anything. And I get like the nostalgia of seeing it, just actually seeing it. But like, this is like the epitome of overreaction to me, because
absolutely it is.
Yeah. It's
in all the right ways.
Like, whatever, man. Whatever. I'm not running over it with a magnifying glass looking for Easter eggs and all that crap. Like, whatever.
I love it. I think it just sort of builds to the anticipation. Plus, it was the idea that Ohio State fans are all up in arms because they think the
when is the game available?
Sports, July the 19th.
Yeah, like, whatever, man. Like, it's not gonna. It's anticipation of what, 2 months from now? Like, whatever.
Oh yeah,
whatever.
Oh yeah, no, it's going to be building, and it's going to be ready to roll, and people are going to be champing at the bit to come get at it. I mean, like, it's going to be a lot of fun. I cannot wait for this game to come out. It was a massive part of my childhood. I loved this game. It's one of the reasons why I fell in love with college football in the first place. It's because when I got an Xbox 360, it was a Christmas present from my mom for my brothers and I. And it came with one of those double-sided games where it's like on one side of the disc, it was NCAA 2005 with Larry Fitzgerald on the cover. And on the other side, it was Top Spin. And it was some tennis game that I was never very good at. I tried to play it. I wasn't too good. But the college football game, I was pretty good at. And that one I really, really enjoyed. And that is one of the biggest reasons why I fell in love with college football. And it was a lot of fun. I loved it a lot. And then I would save up allowance where I would be working chores and doing everything else, and I would save up money for months and months and months to make sure that I had the money to go buy the new college football game. And that was always a big deal for me. And then seeing it come back, yeah, it's just the nostalgia of it all, the excitement of that, and plus seeing Ohio State fans freak out because they think EA Sports has it out for them was also pretty funny. you have the Ohio State player getting stiff armed and it goes straight to Kyle McCord at Syracuse, straight to the Illinois hoisting a trophy that they win and that they compete with Ohio State every single year, and it was Illinois hoisting the trophy. It was funny. Just seeing the way they kind of melted down on Twitter, I enjoyed. But
I'll tell you what, this whole run is due for a massive letdown.
You think so?
Yeah, I do. It's too much anticipation. It's too much energy building. The game's not going to meet expectations.
Oh, it probably won't.
It's too much. It's way too over the top from everyone. The game is not going to meet expectations.
It doesn't. It's a bar. It doesn't have to be. It doesn't. People are going to want it to match what they had and what they remember. And nostalgia is.
But what people remember is never what it was. Marketing. That's the thing.
Yeah,
what people remember is never what the game actually was when they were playing it back then. That's the problem. It's gonna fail to meet expectations, man.
It might. Honestly, it might, and that's why I'm holding off on buying a PlayStation 5 until I actually get my hands on the game to play it at a buddy's house or something like that, because I need to make sure it's not going to completely and totally rip my heart out. Because if it does that, then now I don't know how I would ever recover from that. It would be brutal. But the thing is, people, to your point, people remember the nostalgia. People remember the way the game made them feel when they were 12 years old and playing this game like in their basement or something. And now they're 30 and it's maybe not exactly the same, but we'll see. We'll see. I think it's going to be, it's something to get fans excited. I know it's going to be probably all of the SEC and ACC media days and all the other events that I'll be covering this summer. I would not be surprised at all if they have copies of it over there for everybody to play. But I know I'm really excited for it. I'm looking forward to it coming out. July 19th is your official date. Online Dynasties, Road to Glory. It's all making its glorious return to your Xbox, PlayStation, whatever console you play. But back to actual college football, because this is the College Football Overtime podcast. So I would be remiss if we don't actually talk some ball here on this podcast. And we're going to do that in terms of the offenses moving into 2024. I just have a list of a couple of schools, and how about this? I'll just name one, and then you can name one. You want to go that way?
Sure.
All right, so we'll start here. And I think this is going to be the best offense in college football next year. I'm sure you have them at the top of your list, or if not number one, they're certainly top three. I have them both as explosive and dominant as they are interesting, and it's Ohio State. I think Ohio State's going to be an incredibly talented team. They're going to be a very well-coached team. Look, you got Quinshon Judkins, you got Travion Henderson in that backfield. You got Emeka Egbuka, who's coming back and replacing Marvin Harrison. That's going to be really, really good. They're going to be very strong. The offensive line, of course, is strong. They're going to have the best running back field tandem in college football, and one of the best ones that we've seen in the last decade. But the thing that makes them most interesting specifically is the offensive coordinator, Chip Kelly, his relationship with Ryan Day, who's taking his hands off of the reins for the first time in his coaching career as a head coach. He's not going to be calling plays on offense. I wonder how that's going to work. I'm very interested to see how that's going to work. And then additionally, it's Will Howard. I think he is the final key or a piece of the puzzle. He's the biggest. If he's as advertised, let's just say this would be an unstoppable unit. Because Chip Kelly, I think, is as good an offensive mind as anybody in college football. Ryan Day is not going to let this unit suffer. There's way too much talent. But if Will Howard, if he's able to match those expectations or at least come close to those expectations, this offense is going to be 500 plus yards per game. They're going to be dropping 45 points per game with ease. And they're going to be a lot of fun to watch every single Saturday.
Yeah, all I'll say is two things, and that is Will Howard needs to exceed what I believe him to be for that to be the case, because I do not put him in an upper echelon of quarterback, and I'm not saying I'm right. I could be wrong, but I need to see more than what I have seen from him. And Jeremiah Smith, just I want to see it, man.
Stud. I'm
Like
so excited to see him.
I want to see that. So yeah, they would have been my number one as well, though, for a lot of the reasons. The addition of Chip Kelly, the addition of the quarterback, but also the running back room and what they bring back there, and just Emeka Obuka returning. There's absolutely loaded. There's no doubt about it. I guess for my first one, and I can go a number of directions, but I think I'm going to head to Tuscaloosa, another team with a new coach, and there's just a lot of questions to be asked. The first one starts with, which Jalen Milroe do we get? Do we get first half Jalen Milroe that almost saw him benched? In fact, did see him benched. Do we get second half Jalen Milroe that almost made a run at the Heisman Trophy? And then how does that play into what Kalen DeBoer is going to bring offensively, and what can he do for Jalen Milroe to help improve him? There's no denying that Jalen Milroe had some serious weaknesses in his game, but he also had some massive strengths, very similar to potentially what we saw with Michael Penix in terms of deep ball accuracy. And so you got that, you got a loaded backfield coming back to return, and just pretty interested to see what they do on offense and how they're going to look.
That's a good one. I like that a lot. I mean, Jalen Milroe is the straw that stirs the drink over there in Tuscaloosa. I mean, it's going to be an interesting one for sure. I really like with the new coach and Kalen DeBoer. Of course, expectations are going to be through the roof, unfairly so. They're going to expect that he wins 10 plus games and plays in an SEC championship game and competes for a national title. The talent is certainly there on offense. It's on defense. This is without question the most talented team he has ever coached. And I'm interested to see what happens with that, because I know that pressure is going to be very, very high. And it's not an easy schedule. Of course, we talked just a moment ago about Alabama traveling up to play Wisconsin. That's not going to be an easy game. You have their first SEC game for Kalen DeBoer. It's going to be Georgia in Tuscaloosa. That's not going to be an easy game. But having a guy like Jalen Milroe coming back to lead the offense, I think is the biggest cog in the machine. I'm really interested to see what happens there. I'm going to keep it in the SEC West, or what used to be the SEC West. Let's just keep it say that. It's Ole Miss. I'm really, really excited to see this group for Lane Kiffin. I think this is one of the most balanced attacks that Lane Kiffin's had over there in Oxford. This is a team that won 10 plus games last year. And Jackson Dart is a beast. He's been very, very good for them. He was awesome last year. And now his wide receiver room just got that much better. Of course, you have Trey Harris and Jordan Watkins, who are returning. They were the leading targets for them last year. Trey Harris was a touchdown machine. But you do lose Quinshon Judkins out of the running back room. But then you add Juice Wells from South Carolina, who I think was debatably one of the best wide receivers in the SEC last year. He is going to be a beast in this attack. He's a versatile, can-do-it-all type of player. And now he's going to slot into the slot in this offense. They're going to be electric. They're going to be fun. They're going to be high-flying. And it's interesting specifically because it's Lane Kiffin. Anything that Lane Kiffin does is inherently interesting, in my opinion. But on top of that, he's kind of crowned himself captain transfer, right? So he's got all of these different transfers from all over the country. I want to see how he puts it all together, both on offense and on defense. But this is an extremely talented bunch, a group that was averaging 40 plus points per game, but then lost their biggest games of the season last year. This year, you don't have it, like you missed the SEC West for the most part. I don't know what their schedule is off the top of my head, but I do know that you don't have to run the gauntlet of the SEC West. Maybe Ole Miss is the biggest benefactor of that.
Yeah, I'm going to keep it right there in what would be the SEC West, but obviously isn't anymore. The Texas Longhorns have lost a lot of offensive production, but they also bring back some important offensive pieces, and that obviously being Quinn Ewers. You got CJ Baxter in the backfield. You got probably 4 of your top 5 receivers are either freshmen or transfers. And it's going to be interesting to see how they look, without the guys that are now in the NFL, like Xavier Worthy or Adonai Mitchell. And so, look, they're going to come to the into the SEC needing to score points, and Quinn Ewers can do it. I do believe that he can accomplish it. But who steps up? Who are the role players? You lost Jonathan Brooks a year after you lost Bijan Robinson. Yes, you have Jadon Blue, who's looked good at times. You have CJ Baxter, who's looked good at times. But ultimately, how good? Because if the pressure is entirely on Quinn Ewers, someone else has to step up.
I love that. I mean, plus they have one of the best offensive lines in college football. I think ultimately that's going to be the biggest thing for the Texas Longhorns this season. Quinn Ewers plus that offensive line, he's going to have tons of time back there. And he's that type of quarterback that will be able to make – they're talented, right, at the wide receiver position. He is that kind of guy who's going to be able to mitigate the issues. He's going to be able to bridge that gap for them and make them that much better in 2024. I love that one. They were on my list for sure. I'm going to keep it in the SEC because I think the SEC is just going to be extremely interesting. I think it's the best conference in college football, has been for 20 years. I think it's also interesting that you look and see that the conference has switched from all the powerful dominating defenses to these high flying spread offenses. And I think nobody is more in tune with that type of play than the Tennessee Volunteers. Look, Josh Heupel is a damn good coach. We saw what he's been able to do as he's continuing to build that program back up. Now he has the best quarterback that program has seen since Peyton Manning. That's no small comparison right there. I mean, Nico is gonna be an unbelievable talent for him next year. I am fascinated to see what that looks like. I mean, we saw what he looked like when he had a competent quarterback under center with Hendon Hooker. Hendon Hooker was a beast, and he took some pretty talented wide receivers and made them into the best offense in the SEC, one of the best offenses in college football. They ran the ball very effectively. It's going to be interesting what they do at the running back position, but Squirrel, he's back. But really it starts and stops with the play at the quarterback position because Josh Heupel, the way he wants to run the ball to set up the pass, but now he's got a quarterback that's not going to miss the open looks. Like last year was a problem for them last year, overthrown balls, interceptions, things of that nature. But Nico is going to be the most exciting quarterback in the SEC. He might have the biggest ceiling of anybody in the conference. That includes Carson Beck. That includes Quinn Ewers. That includes Jackson Dart. Nico might be the best quarterback in the SEC when it's all said and done.
Yeah, I mean, he might or he might not. I mean, you're saying all these things, but like it sounds a lot like what we said about DJU, like the next Trevor Lawrence, and like we know how that worked out at so I do have hesitation, and I think that is why it's interesting, is because
yes,
it is so reliant on Nico being that guy. What happens if he isn't? So I see where you're headed there. I'll do one more. We're leaving the conference, however. We're heading up to the Big Ten. I want to take a look at Oregon. Obviously, you got to replace Bo Nix. You're doing so with Dillon Gabriel or Dante Moore. We'll see how that. I tend to believe it's Dillon Gabriel's job to lose, but give credit to where it's due. But you also brought in Evan Stewart out of Texas A&M. I thought that was a pretty good addition to a team that is losing Bucky Irving and Troy Franklin. And so just interested to see Dillon Gabriel, a guy that comes in with the most starts or will have the most starts in college football history when all is said and done in his career. And what he can do. How good is Dillon Gabriel? Because we saw it at UCF. I think there were some questions about the top end, the top tier of what he could do while at Oklahoma. But to be honest, Garrett, I would have had the same questions about Bo Nix. And Bo Nix just got drafted in the top 15, the top 12 of the first round of the NFL draft. And so now I'm starting to look at Dillon Gabriel and say, well, maybe this guy is something special. So we'll see what he can do in 1 year with the Ducks. But a lot of talent. And then the other aspect of this ultimately is moving into a new conference, a much different defensive conference, and excited to see how the Ducks offense can run in there.
I could not agree more. I love the poll. No, I mean, Oregon, they were the number 2 offense in college football last year for a reason. They were averaging well over 500 yards of offense every single game. I mean, Evan Stewart, Tez Johnson at the wide receiver position, it's going to be electric. But Dylan Gabriel, I think, is the ideal quarterback to lead that sort of tempo that they like to run over there in Eugene. I think them moving into the Big Ten, Texas and Oregon are two teams that, yes, they're moving into new conferences, but they have a very good chance of winning both. I mean, I think both teams are going to be very, very fun to watch next year. And it starts with the way those teams have been constructed. These are teams that really struggled to protect the quarterback and get after the passer and dominate the trenches. And Dan Lanning and Steve Sarkisian put a massive emphasis on building up the trenches at both of those institutions. And you've seen the fruits of that, of the work that they were putting in. And I think Oregon's going to be a very fun team next year. And I'll finish this off. The last one, and I'd be remiss to not mention the Georgia Bulldogs. Carson Beck is back under center. Trevor Etienne. I mean, not only did you steal Trevor Etienne from your hated rival, you took their best player and added him to your team, but he's going to be almost in a committee. I mean, you have tons of talent in that backfield. You have Roderick Robinson, you have Branson Robinson in the backfield. You have to replace Brock Bowers, but you have a guy named Oscar Delp and Lawson Lucky, guys like that who are going to be under center there for you. On the offensive side of the ball. Dominique Lovett, Dylan Bell, Ra Thomas, Arian Smith, London Humphreys. He comes in from Vanderbilt. I mean, this group is going to be extremely talented. The wide receiver room is deep, but my biggest question mark is who's that top end guy? You replace a Brock Bowers, who Brock Bowers was an unbelievable talent. He was your clear number one, a guy who could go up and get it. And you know that Carson Beck knew that he was always going to be open. He can get the ball out to him. Who is that guy for them this year? Because you're going to need a dude like that because you're going to be playing these games this season. You have Ole Miss on the schedule. You have Alabama on the schedule. You have Texas on the schedule. These are not going to be easy games. These are going to be games where you're going to have to be able to keep up the pace. Yes, that's a defensive first program, but you need to be able to find guys and make big plays happen. Who is that guy for the Georgia Bulldogs this year? I think they're pretty much set at the running back position. Their offensive line is, again, among the very best in college football. Carson Beck is one of the best quarterbacks in college football. The wide receiver room is deep, but who's the number one? Who steps up? Who is the elite talent? I think that's the biggest thing for me. Anything else you wanted to add, Abe Gordon?
I'll just throw Michigan out there as well. Obviously, replacing a boatload of talent, but Alex Orji, as in terms of just straight up physical specimen, interested to see what he can do. And then certainly you got Donovan Edwards, who is on the cover of that college game you're so excited about. So obviously, someone thinks he's in for a big season. So interested to see what they do as well.
Yeah, I think that's going to be an interesting one. I mean, Sharon Moore, of course, in his first year as head coach, was the offensive coordinator for that program, had them playing at a high level. But of course, you do have to replace effectively your entire team. So my expectations for the Michigan Wolverines, I mean, they'll be a fine team. I mean, the cupboard is not exactly stripped dry, but it is not. They have to replace a lot of talent, and that's really what it all comes back to. But Abe Gordon, that's it for us, man. This has been a lot of fun. Episode 49 of College Football Overtime is in the books. We got episode 50, so make sure you are right here with us. So make sure to drop a like, follow us, subscribe, do all the things. All the things. Give us a comment, and let us know what we should do next time celebrate our 50th episode together. I'm very excited to do that right here on the College Football Overtime podcast. My name is Garrett Chapman. His name is Abe Gordon. We will see you again here next week. Thanks for listening.